Hello everyone. Today, I will continue sharing with you the love story of Sam and police officer Lee. I hope you enjoy watching the video. That night, darkness settled over the village like a thick, suffocating blanket. The silence was so complete that even the sound of the wind slipping past the low rooftops could be heard clearly. Dawn had not yet arrived, and the air still carried the lingering chill of late night, a cold that crept into the skin and made one shiver even while lying still. Sam suddenly woke in a state of panic, as if someone had violently pulled her out of a dream that had not yet fully formed. A sharp, crushing pain seized her lower abdomen without warning, giving her no time to prepare. It struck suddenly and fiercely, surging like a powerful wave crashing straight into her already exhausted body. She let out a soft groan, her hand instinctively clutching the thin blanket, fingers trembling until they turned pale. Her breathing grew rapid and uneven, and cold sweat quickly soaked through her back. Sam understood clearly, even without anyone saying a word. The child inside her was ready to be born. The pain eased for only a brief moment before returning even more violently. Sam curled her body, biting her lip hard to suppress an involuntary cry. In that instant, fear crept quietly but heavily into her heart, like a stone pressing down on her chest. She was afraid for herself, but more than anything, afraid for the fragile life stirring inside her. Lee sprang up when he heard Sam call out softly, her voice weak and trembling. One glance at her pale face and unfocused eyes, clouded by pain, told him everything. He didn't need to ask, his instincts told him that the moment had come. There was no hesitation. Lee quickly called his sister, his movements frantic while his mind felt strangely rigid with tension. He threw on his jacket and carefully helped Sam to her feet, supporting her step by step, as if even the slightest misstep might cause her more pain. His sister hurried to gather the necessities, her worry evident as she watched Sam lean almost entirely on Lee for support. The car sped through the night, headlights tearing through the darkness ahead. The familiar road suddenly felt far longer than usual. Sam sat in the back seat, leaning against the seat, both arms wrapped tightly around her stomach. With each contraction, her entire body trembled. She gasped for breath, feeling as though the air around her was thinning, every breath requiring twice the effort. Lee kept glancing back, repeating soothing words while forcing his voice to remain calm. But deep inside, fear gnawed at him relentlessly. Never before had he wished so desperately for the road ahead to be shorter. When the car stopped at the hospital entrance, Sam barely had the strength to stand. Nurses quickly appeared and placed her on a stretcher. The cold white lights revealed the exhaustion and pain that had accumulated on her face over long hours. In the blink of an eye, she was rushed into the delivery ward. The delivery room doors closed, forming a clear boundary between inside and out. Lee stopped abruptly, his hand still reaching out instinctively, but all he touched was the cold air of the hospital corridor. Outside, time seemed to stand still. Lee stood silently with his back against the cold wall, straining to catch every faint sound from within. The hurried footsteps of doctors and nurses, the soft clinking of metal instruments, and the long, suffocating stretches of silence. Every minute felt as heavy as an hour. As a police officer, Lee was no stranger to pressure, danger, or moments balanced on the edge between life and death. But this time, he was completely powerless. There were no orders to give, no actions he could take. The woman he loved was behind that door, facing the greatest pain of her life alone, and all he could do was wait. Inside the brightly lit delivery room, Sam fought through wave after wave of pain on her own. There was no familiar hand to hold, no comforting voice by her side. Only blinding lights, the sharp scent of antiseptic, and pain that felt as though it might tear her body apart. Sam had long been accustomed to hardship. She had known hunger, exhaustion, abandonment, and neglect. but this pain was different. It was not only physical suffering, it was a life-or-death battle to protect a fragile existence. She clenched her teeth, forcing herself not to give in. In her mind, only one thought remained, clear and unshakable. My child must be born safely, no matter the cost. The doctor continuously guided her breathing, watching every small change in her face and body. Sam tried her best to follow, but time seemed to stretch endlessly. Each wave of pain drained a bit more of her strength, leaving behind only emptiness and overwhelming fatigue. Out in the corridor, Lee and his sister stood side by side, hands tightly clasped in silence. No words were spoken, yet both understood, tonight would be a long night. In that stillness, all they could do was wait and place their faith in the strength of the woman fighting alone behind those closed doors. Time inside the hospital passed in a strange way. It was neither fast nor slow, but unbearably heavy, as if every passing minute left a dull ache in the chest. Lee had no idea how long he had been standing in the corridor. The cold white fluorescent lights overhead made him dizzy, and the floor beneath his feet no longer felt as solid as before. The delivery room door remained tightly shut. From inside came broken, intermittent sounds, sometimes clear, sometimes faint, enough for Lee to understand that nothing was going easily. At times there were hurried footsteps, people moving in and out, at other moments, a silence so long it felt terrifying. Each time the door opened even slightly, his heart pounded violently, as though a single glance or a few brief words could determine the fate of the entire world he was holding on to. Inside the delivery room, Sam was paying the price for every minute of the prolonged labor. The pain no longer came in steady waves but crashed down relentlessly, overlapping one another, giving her body no chance to recover. Sweat streamed down her temples, soaking the pillow beneath her head. Her breathing grew heavy, every inhale felt like she had to pull air from somewhere far away. The doctors exchanged short, urgent sentences, their expressions grave. They guided Sam to adjust her breathing, signaling her to push at the right moments, at the right time. Sam tried to follow, but her body was beginning to rebel. The little strength she had left was nearly gone. She could clearly feel her body breaking down. Her arms trembled uncontrollably, her legs felt unbearably heavy, as if they no longer belonged to her. There were moments when Sam closed her eyes, her mind going blank, with nothing left but pain closing in from all sides. Fear crept into her thoughts. It wasn't loud or explosive, but silent and cold, like a thin layer of frost covering her mind. She caught fragments of the doctor's conversations, just enough to understand that both her condition and the baby's were unstable. Her heart tightened, her breathing becoming even more rapid. And then, in the middle of that panic, old memories suddenly surfaced. Years of poverty. Days of being neglected. Moments when she had to pick herself up after life knocked her down. Sam had once believed she wasn't strong enough. But she had survived all of it. And if she had made it this far, she would not allow herself to fall at this moment. Sam opened her eyes. Though exhausted, her gaze slowly grew firm. She gave a weak nod when the doctor instructed her, gathering every last fragment of strength she had left. Each time the pain surged, she clenched her teeth, pouring all her will into a single purpose, keeping her child safe. Outside, Lee began to sense that something was wrong. The waiting was dragging on far longer than he had expected. His sister stood beside him, her face tense, yet she forced herself to remain composed. She tightened her grip on Lee's hand, as if trying to pass him whatever strength she had left. Then the delivery room door opened. A doctor stepped out, his expression grave. With just one glance, Lee knew the news was not good. His heart sank, as if someone had suddenly crushed his chest. The doctor spoke slowly, each word falling heavily into Lee's ears. The delivery was complicated. The mother was exhausted. The situation was unfavorable. The family needed to prepare themselves for the worst possible outcomes. Lee froze. He couldn't hear the rest of the sentence. His ears rang, his mind went blank. Panic surged over him, stronger than any fear he had ever faced in his life. He stepped forward, almost pleading. "Please, let me go in and see my wife." The doctor shook his head. Regulations did not allow it. At this moment, the presence of family would not help, it might even interfere. Lee stood motionless. His arms fell limply at his sides, his shoulders slumping as if carrying the weight of the entire sky. As a police officer, he had saved lives, faced danger without hesitation. But now, in front of that delivery room door, he was completely powerless. His sister tightened her grip on his hand, her voice low but firm. "Sam isn't weak. She's endured so much since she was young. I believe she'll make it through." Lee didn't answer. He only nodded slightly, his eyes red with tears. The two of them stood side by side, silently clasping their hands in prayer. In that long, cold hospital night, they had nothing left but fragile faith placed in the woman fighting for life, second by second, behind the closed door. Inside, Sam heard every instruction, every hurried exchange. She understood clearly that she was standing on a fragile line between endurance and surrender. Her body trembled, her breathing broke apart, but deep inside, a small flame still burned. Just a little more, just a little longer. And Sam, with every last ounce of strength she had left, continued to fight. Inside the delivery room, the tension was so thick it felt as if it could be cut with a knife. The harsh white lights poured down, making everything painfully clear, painfully exposed. Sam lay there, her body drenched in sweat, her hair plastered to her forehead. Every breath now was an effort, no longer natural, but heavy and broken. Sam's body had gone beyond its limits. She felt as if she were drifting in a hazy void, where the sounds around her faded in and out, sometimes clear, sometimes distant. There were moments when her eyelids drooped, her consciousness threatening to slip away from her exhausted body. "Don't fall asleep, stay awake." The doctor's voice rang out, firm but not harsh. Sam blinked faintly, as if to prove that she was still there, still holding on. She followed every instruction, even though each movement sent sharp pain tearing through her body from the inside. The contractions came faster, stronger, leaving her no moment of rest. Sam clenched the bedsheets tightly, her knuckles turning white from the force. She bit down hard, sweat dripping from her temples and sliding along her cheeks. In that moment, fear rose again, no longer vague, but sharp and cold. Sam knew that if she gave up now, everything could end in a way no one wanted. Her heart tightened, her breathing trembled, but then something seemed to pull her back. Images from the past flickered through her mind. The old, worn-down house. Simple, meager meals. The countless times she had faced life alone, with no one by her side. Sam had once believed her life was nothing but endurance and moving forward. But now, in the depths of unbearable pain, she suddenly realized she was no longer alone. She carried a life within her, a reason to be stronger than she had ever been before. "Sam, focus. This time, give it everything you have." The doctor's voice came again. Sam drew in a deep breath, even though her lungs felt as if there was barely any air left. She braced herself, gathering every last ounce of strength she had, ignoring the pain ripping through her muscles. What she felt then was no longer just pain. It was a violent collision between survival instinct and physical limits. Sam trembled, a hoarse cry tearing from her dry throat, but she didn't stop. She forced herself to continue, even though every passing second felt endlessly stretched. Then, in the midst of the chaos, a sound rang out. At first, it was very small. Fragile. But strong enough to shatter the suffocating tension in the room. A cry. A newborn's cry, delicate yet clear, resolute, echoing like a declaration that life had won. The room froze for a brief moment, then instantly burst into motion. He's out. The baby's out. The doctor's voice rang with excitement. A baby boy was delivered from Sam's body, his cries growing louder and stronger, as if unaware that he had just crossed the thin line between life and death. Sam heard that cry. Even in her near-exhausted state, she recognized it. A tear slipped from the corner of her eye, not from pain, but from relief. Her body finally relaxed, her breathing slowly steadied. She had done it. Out in the corridor, Lee stood leaning against the wall, his hands clenched so tightly they had gone numb. His head was bowed, his lips moving in silent prayers. And then, the cry rang out, piercing through the closed delivery room doors, echoing into the cold hallway. Lee snapped his head up. For a moment, he didn't trust his own ears. Then the cry came again, clearer, stronger. His entire body trembled. He stood frozen for a second before tears spilled freely, beyond his control. He turned and pulled his sister into a tight embrace, his hands shaking. No words were needed. They both understood. Sam had made it through. The baby had been born safely. Lee clasped his hands before his chest, his lips trembling as he whispered words of gratitude he couldn't even remember saying. In that moment, all fear and tension burst into the purest emotion of all, gratitude that life had remained. Inside, Sam was moved to the recovery room. She lay still, her face pale but no longer strained. Her breathing was steadier now, her heartbeat slowly returning to normal. Beside her, the tiny newborn lay peacefully, sleeping after his first cries in this world. A new chapter had begun. After the life and death moment passed, the hospital gradually returned to its familiar rhythm. Footsteps were no longer hurried, voices softened into whispers, and although the white lights remained bright, they no longer felt as cold as before. Sam was moved to a special recovery room, lying quietly on the bed, her body exhausted, but safe. She opened her eyes in a half-awake, half-dreaming state. Everything around her seemed veiled in a thin mist. The pain was still there, dull and heavy, but no longer overwhelming. Her breathing was steadier, her heartbeat slower, as if her body had finally been granted permission to rest after a long battle. Seated beside the bed, Lee's sister quietly tended to Sam. She adjusted the pillow to help her breathe more comfortably, gently wiped the remaining sweat from her forehead, every movement careful and tender. She didn't speak much, only occasionally leaning down to softly ask if Sam felt uncomfortable anywhere, or if she needed more water. Her eyes held a deep, wordless concern, the kind of care that didn't need to be spoken aloud. Sam was too weak to talk. She could only nod faintly, or respond with the slightest smile. But just having someone there, silent yet steady, brought her a profound sense of reassurance. In the most fragile moments of her life, Sam knew she was not alone. In another corner of the room, Lee stood awkwardly with his tiny newborn son in his arms. It was the first time he had ever held a new life. The baby was so light that Lee feared even the slightest pressure might hurt him. He held the child close to his chest, every movement slow and cautious, as if cradling something priceless and irreplaceable. He bent down, watching every small motion, the gentle rise and fall of the baby's breathing, the slight movement of tiny lips, the little hand curling and relaxing again. At times, Lee felt clumsy to the point of being almost amusing. He asked the nurse about every small thing, listened carefully, memorized each instruction, then tried again, his hands still trembling from inexperience. But he didn't give up. Every time he looked at his son, a strange yet warm emotion rose within him. It was responsibility. It was connection. It was the clear realization that from this moment on, his life no longer belonged to him alone. When Sam's condition stabilized, the doctor allowed Lee to enter the room. He stepped inside, his heart pounding in his chest. Before him lay Sam, resting quietly, her face pale but peaceful, and beside her, their small child sleeping soundly. Lee walked closer and stood there for a long moment. The sight before him caught in his throat. He gently placed a hand on Sam's shoulder, leaned down close, his voice low and trembling. "You were incredible. Thank you." Sam didn't speak. She simply looked at him, her gaze softening, then smiled faintly. A single tear slowly slipped from the corner of her eye, not from pain, nor from exhaustion, but from relief and happiness after years of silent endurance. The next day, when both mother and baby were stable, Sam was allowed to leave the hospital and continue resting at home. As she left behind the scent of antiseptic and the cold white lights, Sam felt her heart grow noticeably lighter. The car stopped in front of the familiar wooden house. It wasn't large or elegant, but it was tied to years of hardship and hope. The moment she saw the roof, Sam felt a sense of peace she had long yearned for. The days that followed passed slowly, yet warmly. Lee's sister stayed to help care for Sam and the baby. She took care of meals and rest, reminding Lee of every small detail of childcare. Lee was still clumsy, but patient. He learned how to change diapers, rock the baby to sleep, wake up in the middle of the night when the baby cried. No matter how tired he was, he never complained. Sam lay in bed, listening to familiar sounds, Lee's footsteps outside on the porch, her sister-in-law's voice in the kitchen, the baby's soft movements in sleep. All of it blended together into a sense of peace she had never imagined she could reach. She had once believed that the best things in life always arrived too late. Now she understood that all the years of endurance had not been meaningless. They had led her to this moment, a moment where she had a small family, people by her side not because of circumstance or pity, but because of genuine love. In that simple wooden house, Sam felt happiness clearly for the first time. Quiet, unadorned, yet complete. And she knew that even though many challenges still lay ahead, the three of them would move forward together, slowly but steadily, for one another, and for a better future.
Xin chào mọi người, cảm ơn mọi người đã xem hết video hôm nay và lắng nghe câu chuyện mình chia sẻ. Hy vọng rằng những câu chuyện về Tử Sam và Diệu Hân mọi người vẫn sẽ yêu thích và ủng hộ, cũng như đồng hành cùng mình trong thời gian sắp tới. Hiện tại thì những video của mình đang được phát hành vào khung giờ 7 giờ tối và 7 giờ sáng tại Việt Nam. Nếu mà mọi người yêu thích thì nhớ like, share, bật chuông thông báo để nhận thông báo khi mình đăng video mới nhất, và để lại cho mình một số nhận xét ở dưới phần bình luận để mình có động lực ra nhiều video hơn, cũng như để kênh mình ngày càng phát triển và làm nhiều video hơn cho mọi người cùng xem. Cảm ơn mọi người đã lắng nghe một phút chia sẻ của mình. Hy vọng sẽ gặp lại mọi người ở những video tiếp theo và được đồng hành cùng mọi người. Hẹn gặp lại mọi người ở video sắp tới nhé.